Hello, my name is Caitlin Hecker, and today I will be sharing my top 5 strategies that I would use in a future ESOL lesson. I've selected these strategies from the Teaching Language Techniques for Practice and Communication PowerPoint document that was created by Dave Hopkins in 2014. I've listed these strategies in no particular order from least favorite to most favorite, and it was also very difficult to select just only 5. I found a lot of strategies that I would use. It was really hard to narrow it down. So for my first strategy that I selected is comparison. Within the classroom, comparison can be observed as students identifying similarities and differences between at least 2 objects. Vygotsky would support this strategy because it encourages social interaction, which is an aspect of his social development theory. I would use this strategy in my future classroom to help the non-English speaking students as well as the limited English speaking students by grouping them with fluent English speaking students to help increase vocabulary and other oral speaking abilities by formulating similarities and differences and then sharing the comparisons with the class orally. The second strategy that I selected is my neighborhood. This could either be completed within school groups or at home with family members, depending on the home life and if parents had enough time to help students with the project. Vygotsky would support this strategy because it influences and encourages the zone of proximal development through social interactions. I would use this strategy in my future classroom and group the students based on their English speaking abilities. The students would be responsible for creating a neighborhood, either real or made up, and then creating questions relating to the locations of their buildings. And the questions would accompany the map, and the other student groups would then answer the questions. The map would include directions and could also be integrated through social studies depending on the state standards for the grade level. The third strategy that I selected is categorize the words. This strategy allows the students to take control of their learning by grouping provided words into categories that they decide on. Vygotsky would support this strategy because the students have to work with groups and discuss aspects of the words that will formulate the groups. This strategy also contributes to the growth of the zone of proximal development. This strategy will be used primarily with non-English speaking students as well as limited English speaking students. Fluent English speaking students will be grouped with students who need extra help. Students will discuss together how the words will be categorized into groups, and then they will create sentences using the words. This strategy could also encompass sight words, spelling words, or vocabulary words from a read aloud that's being completed within the classroom. The fourth strategy that I selected is picture story. This strategy allows the students to be entirely creative, and there will be no right or wrong stories. Vygotsky would support this strategy because the students have to verbally create a story within their group. This social interaction contributes to the growth of the zone of proximal development that Vygotsky talks about. It contributes to the zone of proximal development because the students are creating stories within their groups and they are building on their social interactions and abilities to communicate. I would use this strategy by grouping the students based on their English speaking abilities. Every group will have the same picture to create a story from. The students will have limited time to produce a story and record it on paper before sharing it orally within the class. After all the groups have shared, then the students would compare their stories to the other groups and look for similarities and differences. Within the strategy, the students would be practicing speaking, reading, and writing of a new language. My fifth and final strategy that I selected is chain practice. This strategy also requires the students to be creative, but they will also be required to listen to others in order to create a fluent and oral story chain. Vygotsky would once again support this strategy because the students have to work together and listen to others in order to create a fluent passage. This strategy contributes to the growth of the zone of proximal development because of the social interactions between the students. Within my classroom, I would begin by only having the non-English speaking students as well as the limited English speaking students participate in this activity. It could be done in like a read aloud center. And then once the non-English and the limited English speaking students develop more with the strategy, I would then use the English-speaking students to assist and make it more of a challenge for them to continue the story chain. I would start the activity by orally giving the first sentence, and then I would go around the group and have each student add one sentence at a time. The strategy focuses on listening and speaking, and the goal is to create together one fluent passage within the group.